The September 7th, 2022 meeting of the Ames Planning and Zoning Commission will come to order. The Planning and Zoning Commission is an independent advisory body of the City of Ames City Council. The Planning and Zoning Commission members are volunteers of the community and not part of the city administration. The Planning and Zoning Commission is supported by staff from the city's planning division. Commission is responsible for recommendations on matters involving subdivisions, annexations, master plans, and major site plans, amendments to the zoning ordinance, and comprehensive plan amendments. We make our recommendations based on city codes, the facts presented, and input from the public. As an advisory commission, we welcome all comments regarding the proposed item. Please direct your input to the commission. If the proceedings become lengthy, we may ask that comments be focused on new information not previously presented. You may speak only once on an agenda item. If you wish to speak, please fill out a speaker information card and present it to the recording secretary, Eileen, back there. We ask that you come to the microphone and speak so that all comments may be recorded. The order of the proceeding for each item on the agenda will be as follows. City staff will present the staff report regarding the agenda item. The commission members will have an opportunity to ask questions of the city staff. The applicant will be invited to make a statement regarding the request, and the commission members will have an opportunity to ask questions of the applicant. Members of the audience will be invited to come forward to offer comments and questions at that time. Once public comment is closed, city staff and the applicant will have an opportunity for concluding remarks. The commission will discuss the application based on all presentations and any comments given and come to a recommendation for city council. The discussion may include further questions of city staff and the applicant for clarification. And with that, we'll move on to the first item on the agenda. That's the introduction of commission members.
Julie Winter.
Michael Sullivan.
Mike Clayton.
John Emery.
Mike LaPetra.
Aspen Flans.
Jim Wickensdorf.
Okay, thank you. You have the agenda before you. I would look for approval of the agenda.
So make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
There's a motion to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of August 3rd, 2022. Hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at those. Is there any discussion on those? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 3rd, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of the August 3rd, 2022 meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion will pass. Next on the agenda is the public forum. That gives you a chance, if you're from the public and would like to speak on an item that's not on the agenda, now would be the time to come forward and do that. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on an item not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public forum. Next on the agenda is the public hearing on the preliminary plat for 2105 and 2421 Dayton Avenue, the North Dayton Industrial Park. And I will note that there are a few new members on the commission that haven't been here when we discussed this project before.
All right. Thank you. I'm Justin Moore. I'm the case planner for the subdivision. So
Justin, you need to be by a mic.
it's not working.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that one. Sorry.
Yep. Everybody hear me okay? All right. So we do have this preliminary plat application from Dayton Avenue Development, LLC. It's for the property that you see there on the screen. Currently, there are two properties. They are addressed as 2105 Dayton Avenue and 2421 Dayton Avenue. Those sit on the west side of Dayton Avenue there, immediately west of the USDA, kind of between Color Biotics to the south and Eagles Loft Daycare to the north. Some brief history. This land was annexed into the city earlier this year. And earlier this summer, the land was rezoned to general industrial with a master plan. The master plan was pretty straightforward, but it did stipulate that there be a certain number of lots that are on site, and so we will be reviewing the preliminary plat for that. I'll go ahead and pull up the plat here and show it to you. So there are 10 lots that are proposed, 10 buildable lots. There are also 2 outlots that are being proposed as well. So the 2 outlots are to the southwest there, the far southwest, and then also the far northwest. Outlots A and B, those will be for stormwater detention, as well as some wetland protection area. And then there is also a small pioneer cemetery right about in here where the cursor is, and that is being protected and access provided for on Outlot B by the developer. So the 10 lots there are all arranged along future proposed Bailey Avenue. That's the street lot known as Lot A there. Bailey Avenue will be a loop street. All of the lots will gain access from Bailey Avenue. There are 2 lots that you see there that are considered through lots. Those are lots 9 and 10 that sit between Bailey Avenue and Dayton Avenue. And those are the only 2 through lots. Those lots, again, will access only from Bailey. There will not be any lots accessed directly from Dayton Avenue. The Dayton Avenue, I'll also add, will have turn lane improvements at both intersections where Bailey will meet up with it there to the north and to the south as well as part of the development. So real quick, I'll just add, we do have, there are utilities that are adjacent to the land out here. Water and sewer will be extended into the subdivision, as well as electrical will also be extended in the subdivision as well and provided to all of the lots. We do have a condition that we note in our recommendation, and we're just working with one last thing with the developer to make sure that Outlot A has access to Bailey Avenue. That is a requirement in the subdivision standards. It doesn't quite have that yet on this revision. However, we are conditioning that as a requirement prior to City Council, and the developer's engineer is finalizing that for us, and we'll get that to us before City Council. So with that, I can go ahead and take any questions that you might have on the preliminary plat.
I have one about the turn signal. So will this be a center turn lane then?
So the design, the proposed design right now is to have a turn lane on the west side of Dayton. So coming from the north, that would be a right turn lane into the site. And then I believe on the design schematic, I actually don't have it pulled up in front of me. There will be some widening required for Dayton near the intersection.
Okay.
For the access that you're requiring for the outlots, just curious, what's the reason for that in code?
So in the subdivision standards, any lot, meaning any regular buildable lot or outlot, is required to have frontage on public right of way.
And the access to the Pioneer Cemetery between lot 3 and 4, that open space.
So actually, there is an access easement. You see it in green right there along the west side of lot 5. So this is actually an access easement here, and that'll provide access to be able to get onto Outlot B, then to go up here to the cemetery.
What's the this space couldn't be 4? Is that just
That actually provides the frontage for that outlot to Bailey Avenue as required by the subdivision standards. So there's a minimum frontage that they have to have, and that's why we're conditioning that Outlot A achieve that prior to city council consideration, which it currently doesn't have.
I have another question about the sidewalks and shared use path. Are you using these terms interchangeably? Either they put in a shared use path or a sidewalk, or what's the width differences
Right.
between shared use path and sidewalk?
So they're two different terms. So when you see sidewalk, we're usually referring to standard 5-foot wide sidewalk. Shared use paths are wider. And so on the west side of Dayton, which is on this subdivision side, there will be a shared use path that will run along there. And that's planned to be along Dayton, regardless of the development here. So otherwise, elsewhere within the subdivision, it's a standard 5-foot wide sidewalk minimum required.
Thank you.
So I'm guessing the developer intends to sell off these lots to prospective people who would like to use them for those purposes.
Correct.
For the outlots, who maintains those?
So the outlots, they will be maintained. I can have the developer speak more to that. The developer has expressed to us the intent is to have a sort of an association that'll maintain those.
Is there any other questions?
I have one more question about the shared use path. So if it's just required along the length of the lot, does the city then have plans to connect that to anything else? Because I noticed it said that there's no other like expansion plans in this area. And so I'm curious, why put the shared use path there if it's not connected to anything else?
Yep. So there are long-term plans to connect it further to the south to fill in the gap as it goes down to 13th Street. So the developer will be required to put it in along the extent of the area that's being subdivided here.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Would the developer like to speak?
Good evening, Chuck Winkleblack, Hunziker Companies, 105 South 16th Street. Just to answer your question, there will be a not homeowners association, a property owners association out there that will pay an annual fee that will cover the maintenance around the pond, what is Outlot A. Outlot B, it's our intention as developers to put a more permanent fence around the Pioneer Cemetery. And then we're required to do a little bit of maintenance in the event someone comes there. But it's our intention, like soon, to get the permanent fence up so that there's no mistake about where it is. We don't want anybody in there doing anything. The rest of that Outlot B is undevelopable. It's an outlot, it can't be built on. There'll be a little bit of detention area there to help with the stormwater requirements. Otherwise, there won't be much maintenance on that. The city generally retains the maintenance, the dredging and stuff of the ponds. We haven't finalized that, but that's pretty standard that the developers, the association takes care of the day-to-day mowing, weeding, that kind of stuff, and any of the dredging, that kind of stuff. The city retains that. And so we'll take the annual cost to do those things and we'll divide it up, and it's generally paid by the size of the lot. So the bigger lots pay more, the smaller lots pay less. We've also completed our archaeological study for the area since the cemetery is in close proximity. And so we've cleared all that. We've done with the Corps of Engineers and everybody our wetland study, and all those areas have been identified. And so it feels like it's been a long time getting to this point, but we understand those things have to be dealt with. So with that, I'd answer any questions. If not, I'd urge your approval.
You're not going to do anything to the wetlands itself.
No. I mean, there are certain things that you can mitigate, and I'm not enough of an engineer to say that what actually gets done, but some of them are protected. The ones and that's determined on to us what can be done. And so I believe in a little bit about lot 3 there. Some of that is in an area that we can't develop and most of the rest of it is out into Outlot B.
I have a question about the proposed fencing that might come around this. Would that be around the entire vicinity or just more sort of the frontage there?
No, it'd encircle the cemetery, and then there'll be probably 2 gates, one walking gate for people to get access, and then one for equipment to get into. So that the big gates, we hope people don't get into them because they don't get closed as much, but there would be one. Again, and if you didn't know it, you kind of have to look to go out there. And when the land was prior to being annexed into the city, it was the county's township responsibility to maintain. When the land is annexed into the city has to take that over, and the city assigned us that responsibility through part of our annexation agreement.
Okay, so in terms of accessing the cemetery, then when would that be open versus not accessible?
It would always be accessible. That's
Okay.
why there's permanent easement there, so that nobody could ever be not allowed to go out and have access to it. And to Justin's point, we'll probably have the gate down so it's more readily available where it is. But I just have no idea how many people go there or if they go there, but I just have no idea.
I know there's no requirement per se for you to do a certain level of maintenance on there, and the area is definitely not well maintained now, so I recognize that. Do you think that with the fees to maintain the area that you would plan on cleaning it up a little bit, or at least?
Honestly, I haven't given a ton of thought to it. I mean,
It's
certainly we
beyond
can't,
zoning.
certainly it'd be hard to believe we could do much less than what's been done out there now. But my guess is that we would keep the volunteer trees and stuff out, and it would get mowed 2 or 3 times a year would be my expectation. But we really haven't spent a lot of time delving into that. But as I understand, and I've only walked it once or twice, and the volunteer trees and stuff that are growing up in there now, very little maintenance has been done prior to today. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the audience that would like to come forward and make comments? And there you go. You come ahead, sir.
Has he filled out a form?
Oh, did you fill out a form?
I did not.
Just make sure you get that to Eileen before you.
Should I speak now or fill it out now or?
No, you can go ahead and
Okay.
speak now, but then fill one out, and I think their forms are right there.
Oh, these little.
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, don't worry about it now. We can take care of it afterwards.
I would like you guys to put some question to something else. I mean, I'm hearing about fencing in the cemetery and walkways and parks and stuff. But what I would like you guys to address and really question is the natural drainage of this property going to be altered and interrupted in any way? And I have not heard anybody ask that question yet, but my gut tells me that it is, and it's going to probably alter the drainage into that timber area to the west. And inside that timber area is some natural habitat, and there's some duck hatchery that happens in there. And I would like you guys to keep that natural drainage as it stands. And frankly, if the contractor, I mean, he's doing some effort on the pond over here in the cemetery, but nobody's really addressing the natural drainage of the land. And that's what I would like you guys to throw a study on. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. And what was your name for the record?
Larry. Last name is Reinsch, R-E-I-N-S-C-H.
Okay. Thank you.
And
Yep.
sorry, address, please, also for the
Yep.
record. Name and address.
1501 Harding.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak?
My name is Todd Bertram. I live at 3701 Onion Creek Lane. And to the prior speaker, I'm actually on the board of directors of the Isaac Walton League, which is the property that is adjacent to this development where basically all the drainage goes now. And we do have some concerns about how the water runoff from this development is going to affect our property. The proposal, as we understand it, is that all of the center area is going to drain from the retention pond here into this low area. Currently, this low area, it has little to no water flowing in it now. As it stands currently, you can see in the center, there's a drainage area, and that runs down to a retention pond that is right here on our property. It doesn't really retain much at current, but this flows, we have a lake down here, and all of this water runs down to this lake. And at first blush, it seems like, okay, they've got it covered. It's not going to be any more water than we currently receive. Upon further thought process, it's going to be a lot more water because it's not going to absorb into that farm ground. And so we're going to get all the runoff from pavement and buildings. And, you know, this is not my job. I don't know all of the terminology, but I believe my understanding is they cannot flow any more water flow than we currently receive. Volume wise, it's going to be more. We understand that. But we're concerned that that flow, that volume is going to be in an area that's currently basically dry. And the area that we receive that flow now is going to become dry. And we would be concerned about flip-flopping those two processes. Now, I hope we can work with the developer and work that out. But so far, it just kind of, you know, like I said, initial blush of the development, it was like, well, it's, you know, it's going to be the same as it was. But upon further reflection, it's not. So that's all I had.
Again, if you haven't already filled out a.
She's got it.
Okay, good, thank you. Is there anybody else from the audience that would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the, we'll get there. Okay, I'll close the comment period. And with that then, would the staff or the applicant like to comment at all on the comments that were made?
So the applicant would have a chance to rebut any public comment.
Right.
So let that happen first. Then if there's questions for
Didn't
staff.
close it, okay.
So we went out and met with some of the folks on the board and showed them the plan of what we were doing. And we had our engineer look at the way the code reads. For those of you that are new on the board, we're not allowed to release water at any higher rate than it presently does today. So there's no doubt that when a lot of this turns into hard surface, it'll release more water, but it won't release it at any higher rate. And so we had our engineer look at it and to take the water and to basically run it was about $80,000 to run the additional pipe needed to take the water and put it in the area that they would like it to be versus having it go where some of it naturally goes to that area. And they're right. Some of it, you can see this draw that comes down through the middle, that kind of collects the water, brings it down, and then comes down in through there. Some comes down through there. And then some, I don't know exactly. They could probably tell you where that from that part comes down through there. So we have no problem doing that if this is part of it, which is not part of our discussion tonight, but it's part of our, we're doing this as a TIF agreement with the city that we're upfronting the cost and the city's going to reimburse us for these costs over time. So if the city has an interest in that, or the Isaac Walton League has an interest in doing that, we're okay with doing that. But the other part of our agreement is we're fixed on what we can sell the land for. So for us and that's part of why we're doing it, is it says we can only sell the land for this much, and in turn, then the city is going to give us back some of the development costs. Otherwise, we couldn't sell the lots for a little over $2 a square foot. So for me, we want to be a good neighbor. We want to work with them, but somebody's going to need to pay that money, because there just isn't, we don't feel like that's something that we're not required to do. But we want to be a good neighbor. But if that's the case, we'd like someone else to participate in the cost, rather than just say, you guys just work this into your pro forma, because we've already agreed at the cap on the value of the land of what we can sell it for. But if there's a way, or if you want the city to consider paying it back in the form of the TIF dollars, we'd certainly entertain that. Thank you.
Any other comments from staff?
If you have any comments, we'll answer questions.
Okay.
Is the city going to do the TIF with them?
It's a city council question. They've preliminarily directed us to draft an agreement. It hasn't been finalized with council yet. We are investing in the infrastructure. General development costs and grading costs are developer costs. So we're not subsidizing the whole project. We're involved in the cost of the paving and the water and sewer extensions.
So their concerns should be addressed to the city council, correct? Is that what you're saying?
So you guys are not involved in how this thing is funded, so that's not relevant to the commission. Your
understand that.
charge is to look at the subdivision code and decide if they meet the subdivision requirements, which we also have stormwater management requirements. And what Chuck references, just basic Iowa code about how you have to manage water.
Right.
So our stormwater code goes into water quality treatment and release rates and all of that stuff. So that's the two things you're looking at, is does it meet the design standards of the city from a layout perspective? And then are they consistent with our stormwater management requirements of the city?
But all I'm saying is the people that have the questions,
I think
they need to take
questioning-
it to the city council.
No, they're questioning the design of the project, not who's paying for it.
Okay.
So, right, if there's no discussion at TIF, it's a question about the layout and the development plan for the property. So for staff, we believe, obviously we're here tonight, Public Works staff has reviewed it, and it meets what we understand to be the stormwater requirements of the city, and as far as we understand, it comports to Iowa code for how you have to manage water and release water across property lines. So the public comment is they're concerned about changes in drainage.
Right.
Would adding more impermeable surface on those lots then trigger this stormwater issue that we're talking about, in which we can't convey more water than is already being stored there?
So when we do a subdivision, the developer and their civil engineer has to plan for the amount of impervious area that can be built across all of the lots up front, and they size the stormwater infrastructure to accommodate that impervious area. So in this case, they have some treatment in Outlot B, primarily though in Outlot A, and that's based on an assumption of an impervious coverage already. If usually they try to max that out at what the most could be done, so it's just covered and they don't have to think about it again. In some cases, they might lower that assumption, and then if an individual lot comes in at a higher amount, they would have to do more stormwater treatment on their own lot before they could get an approval. I don't know if you know what the coverage assumption was in the stormwater plan for this subdivision.
I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay.
With the back to sidewalks and shared use paths, sometimes there's requirement, right, that there's a certain amount of grass or native plantings. was that considered at all in the impervious surfaces discussion of based on X amount of square footage that is concrete or some sort, you need to have this amount of green space or something, or it was all, if we paved over the whole thing,
So those
still
are-
checks out with stormwater.
So that's not a subdivision standard, that's a site development standard. So once the lots are created, then zoning comes back into play.
And that.
And we
covers
talk
that.
about how much landscape area you have to have. We talk about what the front yard landscaping, the parking lot landscaping, all of those standards are. The stormwater, the management plan does not directly dictate green space or planting requirements. It is only focused on the amount of area needed to meet the performance requirement, and then how you're treating the water. The stormwater ordinance cares a lot about how you have plants there, how you do infiltration, how you do retention or detention.
Okay, thank you.
One more question about the site drainage. So you can obviously see on the center of that parcel, it's a grassed waterway type thing. They've clearly not cropped that area because they have drainage issues there. I guess, is this site plan assuming that all of the drainage is going to make it to Outlot A? Because it appears from the topo map that that's an increase in elevation to make it over to there. And then you've got the road of Bailey as well. So I guess is the outflow of water on the east side of those parcels where lots 9 and 10 are. What's going to happen with that water flow? I'm just looking more at that kind of gully area and wondering, just trying to get to the bottom of the concerns, I guess.
Do you have the grading plan handy?
It's,
Yeah.
oh, great.
That's existing.
Okay. And they're going to grade for it to get to, so that it travels to Outlot
Correct.
A.
And there's
Okay.
nothing saying they can't pipe under the road to that outlot for treatment.
Okay. Okay, that was the link that I was missing for. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for.
So if they needed a pipe across the street, they're allowed to do that.
And so that is part of, I understand this is all preliminary at this point, but that would be part of the development agreement, obviously not TIFed in any way and not part of the city, but that would be something the developer intends to do based on this site layout, because this is part of the grading plan.
Yeah, not part of a development agreement, just to meet regular city standards.
Okay,
There's nothing unique here that's been negotiated about development standards. The only thing that's been preliminarily negotiated is reimbursement of infrastructure costs. So this is the proposed grading plan and utility plan. You can see on the bend there how there's a connection coming into that. So they're funneling some of the water into the street, into storm sewer that goes back into the pond, and then you can see on the back of the lot 2 and is it 1 or 3? I'm not sure which. You can see they're conveying some water to that west property line and then back over to the pond.
okay.
Those orange lines are the stormwater conveyance.
So mostly the conveyance on the south side of Lot 10 is primarily addressed with that.
Yeah, so the lot 10 will be redirected to Pond A, yes.
Is there any other discussion with the members? With that then, I would entertain a motion.
Well, I'm sympathetic to the concerns, and I tend to think that this is not the place for us to address those. I think those can be addressed at some other stage in this, and with the city council. But I guess I would move to recommend alternative 1. The Planning and Zoning Commission can recommend that the city council approve the preliminary plat for the North Dayton Industrial Park subdivision located at 2105 and 2421 Dayton Avenue with the following condition. Prior to consideration by City Council, Outlot A must have a minimum of 25 feet of street frontage.
Is there a second? Not seeing a second, the motion fails. Is there any other further discussion we need to have at this point? Or does anybody else have a alternative motion to make?
I guess the big question is if the drainage issues, if we're seeing just from this very, very preliminary look at this, that there may be some concerns, where, this might be a question for staff, where could this concern be further addressed if we approve this? Because this is not directly related to land use. Like you said, we're just interpreting the subdivision code. If we pass it just based upon the merits of the site plan looks good, but we're discounting some of these drainage factors, where can this be addressed?
I mean, so drainage is part of the subdivision code. It's not that it's not an issue to talk about with a preliminary plat. That's why we require a stormwater management plan and a grading plan. It's not just lines on paper. This is the formation of the ground on how it's going to be developed. So if there's a specific concern or question, that's what we can answer. But it is in the realm of consideration with the commission. Your recommendation on how to address it or not address it obviously goes to the city council. They're looking at it through the same lens, the same criteria as you. You have no different criteria than the city council. So that the general, so again, chapter 23, mandatory comply with stormwater requirements. I think anybody's arguing that it doesn't meet quantity or quality control requirements. So in general, subdivisions are to conform to natural features, and it lists off some of those kind of general statements, but it talks about not causing flooding or improper drainage, steep slopes. It's about, most of the subdivision standards are about not causing water problems that will cause hazards or erosion or something onto other people's property. It doesn't delve into what your property rights are for controlling water on your own property. The subdivision code doesn't go there. What your water rights are on your property is not part of chapter 23. It's how you manage the water coming off the site. So I think that's the best I can tell you right now. It's within the realm of the conversation.
And it seems like we need to add another another condition on this, but I guess other commission members help me out. What are you thinking that condition should be?
What are you trying to do with the other condition?
The problem as I see it is that we have concerns from the public that the drainage or the conveyance of water is not adequate. The design is not going to meet that. And for better or for worse, that flow is going to go onto their property. I don't know if that would mean that it's property damage or just the difference of the more water going.
Kelly, I guess, correct me if I'm wrong. The amount of water going on to somebody else's property can't change.
Can't increase.
Can't increase.
Increase the rate of flow.
Can't-
There's nothing about you can't change.
Right.
You
Okay.
can't
Can't
increase the-
increase.
Right.
It's not, so there's,
And that's going to be my extent of water rights law in Iowa right there. Because that's what we focus on is the drainage law, not water rights. So if someone's claiming you're diverting water and I don't have that as a beneficial use, I can't tell you what that means under Iowa law. I don't practice water rights
You can't
law.
increase the rate.
You can't, so from
Right.
a development perspective, you can't increase the rate of flow
So you could
off.
actually increase the length or duration of the flow as long as you're not increasing the rate.
As I understand it, yes.
Okay.
You can change where it releases. There's other parts to it. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't negative consequences off site and you have other property rights and you pursue that through other means. But usually through the lens of stormwater management, we're looking at it narrowly in terms, is it causing what I try to treat, basically negative externalities on that neighbor property. Are you causing erosion? Are you causing flooding? Something that's unanticipated. That's typically what the subdivision code's looking at. And then obviously the water quality is the second level to that.
Then I got a question for a member,
Oh, geez.
DNR member.
So I think we're not really charged with understanding water law here.
I understand that.
And I won't,
So let's
I won't be
tread
commenting
lightly
on that.
where we're going.
I guess what I would ask is a question. So Julie was talking about adding another condition here, but I think maybe what that condition would be, and I don't know if it's something that we could require, I guess, but I think maybe what would satisfy the stakeholders is keeping, as much as possible, keeping the natural rates of drainage from, to the north side of the site and to the south side of the site, similar to what it is now. Is that what I'm hearing? I mean, that's what I guess I'm asking all of you. That's kind of what I'm hearing, I guess.
Well, I guess what I'm hearing is on the north side into the swamp or whatever you want to call it, worried about it drying up.
So
Right,
okay,
that's
so-
a concern.
So we didn't even talk about that. So if you go to the grading plan for the north, there's not much change to the existing topography for the area that actually
Right.
flows northwest. So with that draw that we already talked about, it pretty quickly off the side of that outlot goes to that draw. There's not a ton of land that to the north and the west that drains to outlot B. So I don't think that water is really being diverted from that natural grades on the northwest corner. The
Right.
the
Well,
large,
that's
the
what I
larger.
was going to say.
Yeah, I don't see.
That's what I was going to say.
I don't think the
but-
grading plan indicates that we're diverting water away from that area. It's the manipulation of the land to the south that's being redirected significantly.
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
It looked like, from what I could tell with everything we got, that it's not going to dry up.
I don't
the
think,
wetlands into the forest.
I don't believe the grading plan is redirecting water significantly away from outlot B.
Right.
That's how I would
But that's what I
describe
was
that.
looking at too.
It's my understanding was that the concern was a lessening of water going down through that central. There was a kind of a center draw.
There's two different comments, right?
Yes.
One commenter was concerned about this
Was
pond.
About the northwest, about going into the
Oh,
draw
yes.
from B down into the duck. There's duck habitat down in there. But I don't think that, from everything I can tell from B, outlot B, it doesn't do anything like that. So it looks like the main concern would be outlet A, if I believe that's I'm quoting it right.
Whether enough water flow is making it to outlet A.
Whether
versus going
if
to an adjacent parcel.
whether it exits outlot B differently than it does now.
Has city staff seen all of this though? And city staff, I guess I'm trying to get my handle on what data you all have. And I assume with all the recommended action,
We have everything, right? So city public works staff has reviewed the stormwater management plan. Obviously, we've seen the utility plans, we've seen the grading plan. So we have seen those things.
okay.
And we believe it complies with chapter 23 and with chapter 5A and 5B. So that's why we're here tonight recommending it.
So, Jewel, is there some,
I mean, I feel like if you've had city staff look at it and say that everything is okay. I mean, I'm not an engineer personally, so I have to take the recommendation of city staff that it looks okay. I'm not sure what other data or information we could ask from the developer to.
And I'm going to narrowly say it meets city code. Don't interpret anything I'm saying about other claims under other Iowa code, other water issues. I'm saying it meets city standards.
I guess for anyone who's a water expert, what other options would we have as far as an additional? I'm not sure what the ask would be to the developer to bring additional data on. He's already done the studies and already has the rough development plan in place. I'm not sure what other.
as I understand what the developer is saying, that they'd be willing to do the additional grading and piping if somebody else would share or
Right.
take
but
over the cost.
That's not a city expense. That's not ever part of a TIF agreement.
Yeah, which they can't pass on to the people buying the lots because they're held to a certain amount of asking.
So again, it's not about who pays for anything. It's about whether it meets city standards in chapter 23 of our subdivision code. Does it meet our natural feature conformance with the lot layout and the utility design of the project? That's what we're talking about.
And you're saying it does.
I'm saying that our staff does not believe it causes offsite impacts, which chapter 23 is trying to avoid. And I'm saying it does absolutely meet 5A, 5B, which is the control of runoff for release rate and for water quality.
I guess I'm assuming I know that. So the answer I think is no to this, but is there any actual evidence that this is going to cause an issue, or is it just a concern that it might? I guess that'd be a question that
So
we're past that. I
We're
know,
past
but
that. So we're past
yeah.
that at this
But
point.
it appears to me that there isn't, that the work that's been done has shown that it meets the requirements. And so I guess what I would encourage us to do is to move forward with alternative one. And I mean, it's not a recommendation we can give, it sounds like, but I would encourage the developer to work with any means possible to try and address the concerns of being a good neighbor, that sort of comment. But I don't think that there's anything we can require or should, based on the data we have in front of us and the
Yeah,
plan,
the
and
data
that it
we
meets
have.
the requirements of
Yeah.
the city code.
The data we have right now.
I guess that's
is
what I was
that-
getting at with my comments earlier, before the motion.
So call for a motion.
I would call for a motion then.
You want to do it again?
I'm not going to do it again. I was voted down.
I will. Because as I understand it, all our concerns and all of our jurisdictions been covered. Am I correct? That's a yes or no answer, Kelly. Yes or no?
Maybe.
I can't assume what all of those things are, but I'll say yes.
Okay. I will trust you, even though you've been on vacation. Okay, make a motion that the commission approves alternative number one. Planning and Zoning Commission can recommend that the city council approve the preliminary plat for the North Dayton Industrial Park subdivision located at 2105 and 2421 Dayton Avenue with the following conditions. Prior to the consideration by the city council, outlot A must have a minimum of 25 feet of street frontage.
Is there a second?
I mean, I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
The motion has passed. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing on the integrated site plan subdivision for 1200 and 1220 South Duff Avenue, including Daniels subdivision, second edition, preliminary plat, and major site development plan.
So it just chairs for a second, please. So that item will go to the city council. It's tentatively scheduled for next Tuesday. Just for those that are in the audience, that it may be on the agenda next Tuesday as well, because there's no additional notice beyond the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Eloise Sahlstrom. I'm a city planner here at the City of Ames. This item that you have before you tonight is called an integrated site plan subdivision. It's for the parcels addressed at 1200 and 1220 South Duff, which includes Daniel's subdivision, second edition, preliminary plat, and major site development plan. Within our subdivision code, we have an allowance for this process that's an integrated site plan subdivision. It's not something that we have come forward every day, but it works very well for a site that has previously been developed where there's some changes. Going forward, it is including a change of the lot configurations, and it's including some new development. So what you see there on the screen shows the aerial of what's existing now. It's the Books A Million and Best Buy site. There is an access way that's at a intersection that has a light. So access into the site is controlled and safe. This is zoned highway-oriented commercial. And you can see there's highway-oriented commercial, particularly along Duff in this area. And then there's other zoning to the northeast and to the to the southeast as well. So the proposal, so I wanted to first talk a little bit about the new lot configuration that's proposed. So I mentioned it's currently 2 lots now for the Books A Million and Best Buy. And in order to create a coffee shop over on the northwest corner of the site, which would be lot 3, they needed to configure the site such that they still have frontage for every lot. The HOC zoning district requires 50 feet of frontage. So each lot would have at least 50 feet of frontage. Another consideration of the frontage is how much signage you're allowed for a building. So the reason that they have configured some of the frontage as shown is because they're trying to protect the existing building signage allowances. So, so you can also see here a very small lot. Over here, it's labeled Outlot Z. That lot is the lot that would include the existing pylon sign. It's already there, and as an outlot, it would be a lot that's not developable in the future. But we felt this was a way to accommodate that signage. And so some of the advantages of this process as an integrated site plan subdivision is that many of the development requirements of the site can be shared through the entire area, and it's not on a lot by lot basis. Let me check my notes and see where I am. This graphic here is showing you the amount. It shows you that northwest corner of the site. This is showing you what's being removed that's currently in place, the removal of the existing pavement and some of the existing trees. The resulting plan will actually end up causing a reduction of impervious area, which is a nice thing. So what they've accomplished here is they will be reducing the impervious pavement of this subdivision by about 4%. Additionally, they will be adding new landscaping to meet the current landscaping code for the proposed coffee shop. And they will be replacing any landscaping that was previously approved, but that has died. So they'll be putting in new trees and shrubs in places on the subdivision that currently has not fared well and needs replacing. So, and also as far as the parking goes, even though they're changing and adding another use in this location, they still meet the required parking and exceed the requirement by 39 spaces. So, so it's a real win-win in many ways to have a new development, a new coffee shop in this area, but then also all of the additional things that come along with it are actually benefiting the site. So you can see from this graphic, you can see where the drive-through lane would be. It goes and then circles, you access it here and it circles the building around to the north, and the pickup window is here on the west. We look at the stacking on a drive-through and how many cars can fit between the menu board and where you first enter into the drive aisle. And they are accommodating 5, which is what we require. Additionally, they're showing 6 cars that can be accommodated between the menu board site and the pickup window. And of course, when you have coffee shops, many of these chain coffee shops have their own standards that they impose on a site, and they have, and sometimes their standards are more restrictive than what the city would require, because ours are based on a drive-through for any kind of fast food and not particularly oriented to coffee or something else. So there again, we believe that the drive-through works well with the site, the way it's configured. We also, the parking is an extension of the parking, and the circulation works well within the entire site as an extension of what is in place now and what makes sense as far as when you're driving, so that you're not confused as to how do you exit or how do you enter. And we believe that, so we believe that the vehicles will not impede any of the traffic of the site with this configuration. I didn't bring a graphic of the building elevation, but it is, they've shown a brick clad first floor. The building is really only for 1 floor, but it has the height is higher than what would be a regular 1-story. How do I say it? The lower portion of the building is brick clad, but it is a 1-story building with a parapet that extends higher than where the brick is. Lighting will be included on the building. The applicant did submit some information on the lighting. It's their standard package for this particular brand of coffee shop. We haven't extensively reviewed what was submitted. And so in our alternatives, we do ask that one of the conditions be compliance with the city outdoor lighting code. We don't believe that that's going to be a problem for the applicant, but we still want to reserve the right to review the lighting in a little bit more detail than what we've done so far. So this is a partial redevelopment of an existing site, and purpose of this integrated site plan subdivision allows for determination if the overall layout, function, and building design meet city standards as a collective site and not as an individual lot. And looking at the way that the landscaping and screening and drive-through access, circulation, and parking is met. And we believe that this use of the coffee shop complements existing development and use with the Books A Million and Best Buy.